Peter plays a larger role in Mark's gospel because Mark knew Peter well. He was one of those who traveled with Peter after the resurrection in Peter's missionary journeys. So to see him portrayed as badly as he shows is one of those things that tells us the reality of what happened. Right? For them to look at Peter, who was their own bishop of Rome when this is being written, right? To have him portrayed as a human being who makes a mistake as deep as betraying Jesus is really amazing. And it gives me hope, right? That if we can look at somebody who would become the future head of the church, and we can see him publicly make this level of a mistake, thanks be to God there was no social media back then, right? Hashtag cancel Peter would have been all over the place. Right? To adamantly deny with an oath, that means he claimed before God not to know who Jesus was. Not to even have heard of this man, as he says. To distance himself from God. That's hell. Right? Peter, in that moment, chose to distance himself from Jesus after having moments before said, I will die with you, Lord. Now, the beautiful thing is that's not the end of Peter's story. Peter would end himself on a cross, upside down, feet to the air, because he didn't feel worthy to die the same way as the same Jesus he had denied. Right? But this moment, this betrayal of Peter is kept in all its ugly glory to remind us, hey, I don't care what you've done. Jesus died for you too. Now, in another version of the story, we get to see Jesus look at Peter and give him that moment of forgiveness right then and there. But in Mark's version, we don't get that. In Mark's telling of the gospel, we sit with the reality of what he has done. Right? When I was little, our Stations of the Cross in grade school had a 15th station, the resurrection of Jesus. Right? We went through the whole walk, and at the end we had the good ending, Jesus rising from the dead. And then when I got a little older and I found out the grown-up version didn't have that, I was really surprised. But why don't we go right to the resurrection? We know he's going to rise from the dead. But there's something to sitting with Jesus in the tomb. There's something to really weighing what he went through for us in the midst of our sins, knowing what we have done and knowing that he still loves us. Knowing that in every way that we have denied him, because every one of our sins is a denial of Jesus. Every time we choose sin, we are again saying to the world, I don't know the man. Because we choose death rather than him who died for us. So we sit with that, as uncomfortable as it is. We sit with the loss and the reality of our sins, so that we don't take for granted the resurrection. If we rush too quickly to Easter, if we skip over the Passion, then we run the risk of denying him. We run the risk of denying the reality of what Jesus went through for me. And that's a dangerous thing. So I encourage you, as we go through the Triduum this year, as we go through Holy Thursday and the Mass of the Lord's Supper, as we go through that whole evening, and we hear Peter again make that claim, let it sink in. Right? We've been bold in our speech. Can we be just as bold in our actions? Can we make up for Peter's mistake? Right? We learn from the mistakes of the past, ours and others. Can we learn from that to be a little more humble from the get-go and a little more courageous in our response? And then when we see Peter in the garden making that first holy hour, can we remember to be vigilant, right? Not to sleep our way through our time with Jesus, especially in that moment of darkness, right? When things are at their worst, rather than ignoring him, rather than falling asleep and leaving him alone, can I stand with Jesus in the breach? Can I face what is coming in his life and in mine? Even as dark as it's going to be, knowing that the resurrection is coming, Can I have the strength that Peter and James and John did not in that moment? And then as we listen to the Passion on Good Friday, and we go through all of this again from John's point of view this time, can we see that love poured out for us? Can we see where we should have been standing with him at Jesus' feet, taking it all in, being present to his passion with compassion in our hearts, like the Blessed Virgin and John? And then, when we get to the Easter Vigil, and we look through the whole of human history with those long readings, right from the beginning of creation until the coming of Christ, can we let it soak in how many times over and over and over again God has emptied himself for us? As often as we've fallen away, he has come back faithful. As often as we have died in our sins, he has raised us to life. And when we get to that moment of that word I can't say because it's still Lent, can we rejoice with our whole beings that finally life has won? That finally my sins are gone. We have to sit in the darkness to appreciate the light. We have to know the depth of his love and what emptying of himself truly meant, so that when we receive him anew at Easter, it gets us fully.